So now we will start our discussion on the Yoga Sutra, on the class on the Yoga Sutra. And before we start our class, let us just chant the pranam mantra dedicated to Rishi Patanjali. Om yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. I prostrate with folded hands before Patanjali, who benefited mankind by delivering yoga for mind, grammar for speech, and by removing impurities of body through medicine. So now we will start from the 8th sutra of the first chapter, and for which we will of course share the screen to make it more comprehensible. So let us start from the 8th sutra. We just have already started the sutra and have started the discussion. For a quick recapitulation, we will just discuss some of the portions which we have already discussed in the last class, and then continue with the discussion to complete our discussion on this sutra in this class. So as we have seen, we have already studied the 8th sutra, which is actually defining one of the vrittis, of the 5 vrittis, one of the vrittis. The second one, which is termed as viparyaya. So let us first read the sutra, and then we will go to the discussion. First the literal meaning and then to the discussion. So the 8th sutra, as you can see in the screen, viparyaya mithya jnanam atat rupa pratishtham. Viparyaya. Viparyaya means indiscrimination. What is viparyaya? Is mithya jnanam, is false knowledge. What type of false knowledge it is? Which is atat rupa pratishtham, which is not established in the real nature. Tat rupa means to be established in the real nature. Tat rupa is the negation of that. So it is not established in the real nature. So what actually it is speaking of? As you may recollect that in the last class we were discussing all the 5 types of vrittis. That what is the distinction of these 5 types of vrittis? The distinction is based on the pratyaya. Means the contents of the vritti, the knowledge which is generated by that mental modulation. The content of the mental modulation is known as pratyaya. So in viparyaya, what is happening? The pratyaya doesn't resemble to the object which is being perceived. Just to give an example, the common example in Vedanta, in yoga is this seeing the snake in the rope. A rope is lying in the twilight hours. From a distance, I see it as a snake. So what is happening? Actually, the rope is there, but the pratyaya, the content of the vritti, of the mental modulation is snake. So it is not that I am not seeing anything. I am seeing something, but it is appearing as something else. So that type of false knowledge is known as viparyaya. Now, exactly as in the last class we told, the viparyaya means destruction. Now, here, what type of destruction happens when we see a snake in a rope? You may say nothing. For the time being, I may be a bit afraid, but that it actually in no way harms me. But viparya means harm, it means destruction, it means calamity. Then why this word has been used to describe indiscrimination? Because the real false knowledge which happens is with our sense of individuality. That's the real false knowledge. That the idea of that individual self, I think I am an individuality, that idea itself is erroneous. And in the last class we started our discussion, you will find in yoga, in Vedanta, that what is the idea of the individual self? You all will agree that the two components of the individual self, that I am an individual being. How it can be established that I am an individual being? There are two components. One is the karta, the doer, and the bhokta, the enjoyer. That all the actions that I do, it is I who am the decision maker. I take the decision whether to do a thing or not. And even if I do, I may do it in various ways, not in a particular way. Kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum. I may do it, I may not do it, I may do it in a different way. So I feel I am the karta. I am the one who decide whether to do an action or not. I am the decision maker. And as per my action, the results which I accrue, it may be good, it may be bad, whatever it may be, it is I, as per my actions, I enjoy the results of my action. So I am the bhokta. So now, as we have already started discussing in the last class, if we can negate the fact that I am neither the karta, the doer, neither the bhokta, the enjoyer, then the notion of the individual self will prove to be erroneous. So now, to realize it, there are two types of things. One is intellectual knowledge, and another is experiential knowledge. In spiritual life, we start with intellectual knowledge. For that, we hear the scriptures, we cogitate upon it. Hearing is sravana, cogitating upon it mentally, cogitating upon is manana. And once I get an intellectual conviction of what I have cogitated upon, the truth, which has already been spoken of in the scripture, now the real spiritual journey starts. I go on meditating. Nididhyasana is meditation on the intellectual conviction, which I have developed through my manana, the mental cogitation. I've developed an intellectual conviction, and then I go on meditating on that till it gets ripened into realization. The intellectual conviction at last has to be something experiential knowledge. Otherwise, we can never get established in the spiritual dimension of our existence. So, first, here today, at least with the help of cogitation, let us try to understand, with the help of manana, that why the scripture says that the individual self is neither the karta and nor the bhokta, and that way the individual self itself as if is something which is viparya, which is a false knowledge. And this is the real viparya. Because of this sense of individuality, all the calamities which we experience, all the sufferings which we experience, life after life, is because of this mithya jnanam, is because of this false knowledge. And that's why it is viparya. So this each and every term you will find is very significant. That though viparya doesn't mean false knowledge, it literally means calamity. Then why the word viparya has been used for the false knowledge? Because the false knowledge of ourself, the individuality, results in the suffering, the misery which we go through in our life. It is only because of that false knowledge. The happenings of life in no way can disturb us, how we react to it because of our false knowledge or the correct knowledge. On that depends our bliss or suffering. So let us try to understand, first let us try to understand intellectually that why the idea of karta and bhokta is erroneous, is false. In the last class, we tried to understand the concept, the notion of bhokta. In a very short way, let us try to recapitulate that why we are not the bhokta. You will find that we started with the first noble truth of Buddhism in the last class. That the first noble truth is what? That Buddha was a very rational person. He never started with the belief. He started with the common understanding which the entire humanity has. What's that? The first noble truth, that there is dukkha. Now, if you translate dukkha as suffering, then the entire Buddhism ends as a pessimistic religion. So that's the wrong way. That is a loose translation. It's not the correct translation. The specific meaning of dukkha is dissatisfaction. Now, as we were describing in the last class, that the suffering and dissatisfaction, you may say, are the same, but actually there is a difference between these two. That suffering and dissatisfaction has a subtle difference. It's not the same. To give an example, in the last class we gave that example. When I'm eating cheesecake, I'm not suffering, I'm enjoying. But if someone asks me, are you enjoying? I will say, of course I'm enjoying. But if he or she asks me, are you satisfied? Now a big question mark arises in my mind, because I find that I've already developed the craving for the second. So though I am enjoying, I'm not satisfied. I know that this enjoyment will evaporate, and again I will crave for more and more and more. So that speaks of dissatisfaction. Even when I am enjoying, I am not satisfied. So that's true with all the sensual pleasures. It happens with all. Now the question that why it happens with all this. So the conclusion that the second noble truth of Buddhism, that this why this dissatisfaction is there. What is the cause of dukkha, this dissatisfaction? That is tanha. Tanha means clinging or craving for the things that doesn't last. That I know the thing which I'm enjoying, it will evaporate. I will just reach the climax. It's gone. And again, I will crave for it. And it will go on. In the words of Swami Vivekananda, it's ever running, never reaching, nor a distant glimpse of shore. That's what all the worldly, so-called worldly sensual pleasure entails, results in. It's a hedonistic treadmill. It's a hedonistic treadmill. The word hedonistic treadmill is used in psychology to mean, what does it mean? Hedonistic means hellish. And treadmill, you all know. In the gym you go. In the treadmill, when we are running, it is designed in such a way that though we are running, we are going nowhere. We are just running in the same place. So all our sensual pleasure is something like that treadmill. Ever running, but we are not reaching any goal. And that leads to the suffering. That is why it is called hedonistic. It is hellish. Now, why it happens? Why this is so? That we think we are here to enjoy the world, but at last we find that there's a tremendous dissatisfaction. Why it is so? So in the last class we told that all our desires, if we try to find out the nature of the desire, we will find all our desires, which in Sanskrit are called eshana. all the desires, the ashanas, can be at last boiled down to three ashanas. What are they? Putraishana, desire for progeny; Vittaishana, desire for wealth; and Yashaishana, desire for name and fame. Now, all these three, I think erroneously that those desires are there for me to satisfy. But actually, if we try to find out the nature of these desires, we will find it is actually the trick of the nature to sustain itself. They are not there to give us any happiness. How? Very easily it can be proven. The biological evidence to prove it by studying the nature of the sense pleasure. Let us try to find out the nature of each and every sense pleasure. And all the sense pleasure, as we told, at last can be boiled down to these three: the desire for progeny, putraishana; vittaishana, desire for wealth; and yashaishana, desire for name and fame. There is no desire which doesn't fall in any of these, either of these three categories. All the desires fall in these three. Now, what is the nature? Now, all these three is actually meant for the sustaining of the nature, the propagation of the nature. It in no way is there to give us happiness. Why? Now, you will find that all the three, the putraishana is the desire for progeny, that we need not have to describe that how it sustains nature. Of course, to the progeny, the nature is sustained. Then vittaishana, desire for wealth, how it is linked with the sustenance of the nature. Now, unless I survive, there is no question of having progeny. Unless a being survives, there is no question of having progeny. And for a being to survive, you need wealth. So you sustain yourself with wealth, and then only you can think of progeny. And yashaisana, desire for name and fame, how it is linked with the propagation of the nature. You will find in the entire nature that each and every being wants prominence. Why? In the forest, the tiger, the lion, any creature, you will find the male tiger, the male lion has its own territory. It won't allow any other lion to enter there. It has already demarcated. If any other male lion enters, immediately there is going to be a bloodshed, tremendous fight. Why? It speaks of Yasha. This is my territory. I am the king here. And that way, you are trying to establish the desire for name and fame. Why it is so? The more one can prove through his power to have the dominance over others, the more it has the chance to propagate its genes. And that way you will find Yashaisana is also linked with the propagation of nature. So even in human being, all our education, all the pursuit for wealth, so that we can have name and fame, is after all, at last boils down to that. At last you will find all this is to have in general way we can say that to have a progeny, and through that I propagate my genes, and that way nature is propagated. So that way you will find all the three ashanas have something to do with the propagation of the nature. It is not there to really give me satisfaction. Now, if you try to find out the nature of these three ashanas, what you will find very interesting. The biological evidence to prove it by studying the nature of the sense pleasure. That pleasure is delivered when any creature reaches important goal. All these three ashanas, any of these ashanas, the moment you reach the goal, any creature has any of these ashanas, and of these three ashanas, the moment it reaches the goal, there's a tremendous happiness. There's an ecstasy. That's the first thing. The second point is, you will find, but that happiness, that ecstasy doesn't continue. The pleasure evaporates shortly thereafter. It doesn't continue. Why? The nature has made it so that after enjoying a meal, which you really like, for which you really relish, after enjoying a meal, if you go to the ecstasy which never evaporates, you go in something like as if a ecstasy which takes you to a samadhi. And then what happens? You will never go for the second meal. And you are going to just simply fall off, get exhausted, and die in that ecstasy. So you'll find that each and every desire at last has to do with the propagation of the nature. That my ecstasy should go. I should again feel the hunger. Otherwise, how can I sustain myself? It is true with all the three ashanas. So that's why it evaporates. Though of the first is that I get the climax, and then the next moment I find it has evaporated. That has something to do with the propagation of the nature. The third is very important. We always remember the ecstasy, we forget the evaporation. Whenever we are in pursuit of pleasure, we always see the flowery side of it. There are so many negative implications of it that never comes to our mind. It's only the flowery side of it. And that's why we find in life so many things we anticipate, and when we are anticipating, we think the road is clear for us, and suddenly from nowhere we find some hindrances come and stop me in the midway. One of our Swamis used to give a nice example. He was sitting in front of a huge glass pen, window pen. He was just sitting and relaxing, and suddenly he saw a bird flying, effortlessly flying. It suddenly came and struck the glass pane, fell and collapsed. And the Swami reflected very nicely. That's what happened in our life. When all the things are favorable to me, I think there is nothing which can hinder my way. And suddenly, like that hidden glass pen, which I have not seen, I'm just like the bird, I think the open sky is there. And then suddenly we find in so many ways the hindrances come. From nowhere, the coronavirus comes and you are gone. All your happiness is gone. Why? You will find that as a whole, as a human society, when we are in pursuit of enjoyment, there are so many people who are warning us that our pursuit, our obsession is at the cost of disbalancing the nature. But that doesn't come to the forefront of our mind. We think everything will be okay in spite of the warning. And suddenly we find in so many ways the nature just throws out all the negative implications which are bound to be there because of our obsessive compulsive nature. So what happens that though we know that each and every pleasure has some, that it's not everything flowery, but we never remember, because otherwise if you always contemplate on the negative thing, we won't be motivated to do the thing. So that's why the nature has actually built us in such a way that we never just see the negatives. We always see the thing, the flowery side of it, and that makes us to pursue the thing, that motivates us. So that's the third thing. And the fourth, that anticipation gives more pleasure than the real pleasure. We will find that from the morning we are planning that in the evening we will go to some restaurant and have some social gathering and party. So much of enthusiasm is there throughout the day. By the time I am there, I find that I am not finding any pleasure out of it. It's very flat, very bland. I start getting bored of it. This out of all those engagement, it becomes just the so-called a casual event. The enthusiasm which I felt, that I find has already evaporated by the time I'm already I'm supposed to enjoy the thing. When I'm already in the event, it has already evaporated. Why it happens? Because once you have anticipated, the nature's work is done. The nature, while anticipation gives me the happiness. Why? That happiness will motivate to do the thing. Now when I'm doing the thing, when I'm already in the act, the nature's work has been done. It has already motivated me to do the thing. Now why should it give me any more pleasure? Because now I'm already in it. So you will find that anticipation gives more pleasure than the real pleasure. And the last speaks of dvesha, hatred. What is that? That if anticipation is not met, that is not followed by the fulfillment, the creature feels pitiable. So that also has to do something with the sustenance of nature. That example which we gave in the last class, suppose just think of our ancestors who were food gatherers. They went to the forest to just collect the fruits, roots, herbs for its sustenance, for as a food. Now it sees a tree laden with fruit, ripened fruit. First day it climbs the tree, gets the fruit, eats it, finds it very delicious. He's immediately having the tremendous sense of pleasure, satisfaction. Now the next day, when again he's in the forest, again he sees a tree laden with fruits. Now immediately it anticipates, oh, it is going to give me pleasure. It climbs up and now tastes the fruit. It tastes bitter. And then that knowledge comes. All the fruits are not same. Some may be nourishing, some may be toxic. So it's not that the discrimination comes. It is not that all the fruits are same. So there's where the depletion in the pleasure, the dvesha actually helps us to protect ourselves. Depression, you feel sorry. So in the present language of evolutionary psychology, they say it is better to be safe than to be sorry. So the nature has built us in such a way. The moment I find that it is not to my taste, immediately it gives me depression, so that I am safe. I need not go on indulging it and have to be sorry by the degradation of my health, or it may cause my death also. So now you will find that if you try to find out the nature of the sense pleasures, you will find that the nature does not allow us to see the reality. That I am somehow deluded with the idea that all the enjoyments lying there outside in the world is there for me. The once I can somehow reach the goal, they are going to give me happiness. That's how it is deluding me. Nature, what's actually its aim is not to make us happy. Happiness is just merely a tool of nature to make us do, by which it propagates. It can continue, it can propagate. So we are the tool of the nature, and happiness is just a tool used by the nature to make us do the things by which it sustains itself. So now the big question comes, are we the bhokta? Are we the enjoyer? So here, now that why we are resorting to the modern psychology, as Swamiji used to say, everyone has a language and we should speak to him in his language. Now, if I just say that I am neither the karta nor the bhokta, it doesn't make any sense. If I try to use the reasoning which the traditional scriptures use, again I will find no meaning. I have to speak in the language with which we are familiar. In the modern days academic studies, we try to relate with that, and then we find it can quite palpably, we can understand it, that we are not the bhokta. So we discussed it even in the last class. Now today we will enter the discussion that why we are not the doer also. So we started our discussion with a spooky experiment. It's a very famous experiment. In the Max Planck Institute it has been done, which reveals that our decisions are made 7 seconds before we consciously decide. It's a spooky experiment. In the last class we gave that, we described that experiment. What's that? There is a switch which you can press either with your right hand or with the left hand, and the time when you press is displayed in a display board. Now, the scientists ask you, the moment you decide to press the button with either the right hand or the left hand, you press it. The time will be displayed. And now we will ask you, is it the time when you decided to press it either by the right hand or with the left hand? That's the time when you pressed? Yes, I have done that. So you are convinced that the moment you took the decision, at that moment you have pressed. Well, yes. Now it has been found, invariably it has been found, with innumerable subjects this experiment has been conducted. It has been found when that experiment is done, the brain is kept under some scanning. And it has been found that the spikes, the decision which has been taken, which is actually can be seen by some spikes, the graphs of that fMRI, that at least 7 seconds before we consciously decide, the decision has already been taken. I am thinking I have decided to press the button with the right hand, and immediately I find in the screen the time has come, and I think that's the time when I have decided. But the brain scan says at least 7, at least. Sometimes it is even more than that, that at least 7 seconds before we consciously decide, the decision has already been taken. So it's really something very spooky. Now for about a decade, there was no answer that why it happens. And now we have started understanding because of another very famous experiment. It is called split brain experiment, where we will find a wonderful thing which to a certain extent explains that are we really the one who is taking the decision. Now let us go to that split brain experiment. You know, for some person, because of some physical problems, the two hemispheres of the brain, the left and the right brain, they are actually intertwined, always connected. It has to be separated. Surgically, these two are separated to get rid of all those physical complications. And it was found that by segregating the two hemispheres, as such, there are no any side effects. There are no side effects. The person behaves quite normally. That was thought. But suddenly the split brain experiment, actually very interesting experiment. From that experiment we found, no, there is some difference. What's the difference? Very interesting. You know, our brain has the perception by our brain is something crisscross. Crisscross means our left eye's perception is done by the right hemisphere of the brain. And the right eyes, whatever the right eye perceives, that is actually being perceived by the left hemisphere. So now, for a person who has a split brain, the right and the left is separate. For such a person, he is made to sit in a place in such a way that if something is displayed on the left side, in such a way that only the left eye can see, the right eyes cannot see, the display is on the left. So now, what will happen because of the crisscross in the brain? Whatever is displayed in the left side and the left eye can see, that will be perceived by the right hemisphere. Now, for such a person who has a split brain, very interesting, in the left side, it is when he's sitting there, suddenly an instruction is displayed. What is that? Get up and move. Get up and move forward. Immediately the person gets up and starts moving. Now the one who is conducting the experiment, now seeing that person moving, asks, wait, why are you moving? Why you got up and you are moving? Now the man will say a very interesting thing. He will immediately make up some story. He or she will say, oh, I want to drink water. And in the front, there is a refrigerator, there is a freeze. I want to go and have some cold water. But this person who is conducting the experiment really gets baffled. Clearly, the one who is conducting the experiment, he has seen it is a display that get up and go. which has made him to get up and move forward. But why he's saying that I want to drink water, that's why I got up. Now, what happened with this person, very interesting. As there is a split between the left and the right hemisphere, with the left eye, what he has seen is being registered by the right brain. Now, the right hemisphere of our brain is autobiographical. Whatever it sees, it's registered as it is. There is no question of interpreting it. It sees as it is. It is just biographical, autobiographical. The left brain is the interpreter. Now, as there is no connection between the right and the left, for most of us, even if something is displayed on the left and my right hemisphere only sees, immediately it is transmitted to the left brain. So for us, it's okay. But for this person, there's a split brain. What has been perceived by the right brain is not transmitted to the left. But seeing the instruction, he has got up. A very interesting thing. When you ask, why have you got up? He says, to drink water. Now what has happened? The left brain is the interpreter. The moment, very interesting, the moment there is no instruction coming from the right to the left, immediately it builds up story. And not only that, the person himself feels the story is true. Not only he or she is trying to convince others, he himself is convinced by that story. Very interesting. And that's why you will find in this world, no one says I was wrong. Because everyone, what happens when I'm angry, when the match is going on, or that the one who are viewing the match, the fans, because of something, the clash happens. And you go and interview both the side, you will find both will say that the other person is wrong. What has happened? All our emotions creates that split. There is no split because of the intense emotions. The split is created, and then our perceptions get in that way that whatever is really perceived is not interpreted in the same way. The left brain is the language brain. It is the propaganda machine. That is it is meant for aggrandizement. It's very interesting. The left brain is constantly building up stories, and which I also believe. It's not that I know that I'm making story. That's why there's a very nice book in which this experiment has been described. The name of the book is very interesting. It happens with all of us. We feel in the same way. That name of the book itself will show why everyone else is a hypocrite. I always feel that I am correct, but the world seems to be hypocrite. What is happening? The brain, whatever it sees, because of our emotions, because of our biases, the split happens, and the left brain immediately starts propagating like a propaganda machine. It is aggrandizing, and it makes me believe what I am saying is correct, and I try to make others also believe that it is correct. Now with this person, now when he has got up and is moving, and you ask, why are you moving? If he says, I don't know, immediately I will be doubting his sanity. That this man most probably is insane, that he is just doing something, he has no as such purpose. He is doing something without any purpose. So I will question his sanity. So I build in such a way, immediately I build a story to prove the world that I am beneficial, I am effective. In the language of the modern language, psychology, they call it benefactance. Beneficial and effective. That I am not a queer person, I am not doing something without purpose. There's a definite purpose. And constantly this is happening. Because of our emotions and biases, the split is happening. And we are trying to prove the world. It's not that trying to prove the world falsely. Even we are convinced. All the fanaticism around the world. The biggest problem, you can never explain a fanatic that you're wrong. He has a full conviction that he's right. And in the world, no one with all your rationality, you can never explain that he's wrong. Why? The same reason. The aggrandizement which is going, this propaganda machine, that is doing the work, making me feel I am taking the decision. It is not that. The language brain has, the left hemisphere has created the language. So now we will go this explanation, you will find that it's really, it has very layers of understanding. So now let us go further to understand. Now the question is, if the individual self is not the decision maker, then who is the decision maker? If I'm not the decision maker, that I have understood, that the left brain is creating the language and is trying to propagate something to make me as if a very beneficial and effective person in the society. I am not a madcap. I am a productive person to explain this. So we find that it's being that I am just trying to say something to make others believe that that's the thing I believe, and that's it's true. So now the question comes, if I am not deciding, then who is deciding? Now in the modern in the psychology, it has developed so many ideas which we will find very interesting, has some reference even in our traditional Patanjali Yoga Sutra. We will study in the yoga philosophy, in the 4th chapter, the concept of Nirmana Chitta. It has been variedly translated in various ways. Some gave it a very queer meaning. But we find this Nirmana Chitta actually speaks of the modern concept of mental modules. Very interesting. What's that mental module? In model psychology, they say it is, if you are not the decision maker, who is the decision maker? So in modern psychology, they say, but our mind is not just one mind. Our mind is having innumerable mental modules, not one mind. These are all subsets, some mental modules, which can be translated as the Nirmana Chitta in the yoga philosophy. What are these mental modules? We don't have one mind, but various mental modules, the Nirmana Chittas, all connected with asmita. The moment the conscious principle gets identified with the psychophysical existence, that asmita, ego, develops. Seeing the reflection, I get identified with the reflection. That is asmita. With that asmita, all the mental modules are hinged, are connected. At a particular circumstances, a particular module gets activated as per the circumstances. It's not that I decide which module will get activated. As per the situation, a particular module gets activated, and that module has its own stimulus response conditioning. For a particular stimuli, it responds in a particular way, making me feel that it is I who have responded. I have decided and responded accordingly. We will give some examples, and this idea will get clear. That example which we gave in some last class, when someone asked the question, today let us try to just clarify it a bit more. A young mother walking down the street alone, and suddenly she hears the barking of a dog, and she's extremely, terribly scared, panicked. She runs. The same young mother the next day is with a child, is walking along with the child. Today, what to speak of the barking of the dog? Even if a lion springs in front of her, today you will find she has a terrible, tremendous courage. She is facing the lion, guarding the child. She is ready to give away her life. And we may feel, even the mother may feel, it is she who is decided to give away her life. But actually, what has happened? The previous day, when she was alone, the particular module, which is called self-preservation module, that got activated. In that, the response is, whenever there is danger, run. That's the response. That is fixed. Why? To survive. When the predator is there, to survive, I have to run. So that was the response. The next day, the module which got activated is not the self-preservation. It is the child protection module which got activated. You may say, why? Was it not the mother who decided? No. The nature has devised us in that way, that once you have your progeny, the nature knows your work has been done. The nature will be propagated through the future, through its progeny. So you are no more important. The nature has to be propagated through the child. So now the nature has made those modules within us, child protection, that automatically gets activated. It's not only the humans. Throughout the creation, you will find, even in animals, the mother is there to protect the child, even at the cost of its life. What has happened? The child protection module got activated when the child is there, because the nature will be propagated through the child. Your work has been done. But the nature again has tricked us in such a way that we feel it is I who have decided. But now you will understand that all these modules, as per the situation, is getting activated. It's not I who am deciding. We will find that when I am at home, I'm a different person. The same one, when I'm at my workplace, I'm a different person. Again, when I'm with my friends, I'm a different person. As per the situation, the mental module which is suitable for that situation, that automatically gets activated and makes me behave in a way which is suitable for that situation, but at the same time gives me an idea that it is I who have decided to respond that way. There are so many examples. You know, a group of some students of psychology, they, along with their family, were taken for some excursion. And the excursion was planned in such a way, the entire group will get down in some small village town in the evening and stay in that village town in some restaurants. And the next day morning, again, they will catch the train to go to the destination. It was planned in such a way because there was some other intention. Now, when the train just came to that village town, all got down. And now, instead of taking them directly to the restaurant, to the hotel, it was planned that first they will go to watch some movie. Very interesting. It's an experiment, a very famous experiment. They'll go to watch some movie. But in that movie theater, as you know, there's not only one movie. There are so many movies that are going on. So now you choose which movie you are going to see. Very interesting. One movie, some horror movie was going on, and in some another theater, some family adventure movie was going on. So now all the students who were with their families, they decided, some decided to go for the horror movie, some went for the family adventure movie. Now when they came out, now the option for choosing the hotel was kept in front of them. That there were not sufficient hotel in the hub, in the center of that small town. Some of the hotels were a bit outskirt, in a lonely place. Now, if you give them the choice, the chance will be all will be trying to stay in the hub center, and there is not sufficient room for all. So now that's why they devised this plan. They have shown the movie. After that, they're asking for the choice. Very interesting thing was found. Those who went for the horror movie, they all chose the center of that town, the hotel in the center, in the hub. And those who went for the family adventure movie, they themselves chose for some hotel which is in a bit remote place, which is a bit out of the town. You know why? Again, when you are watching the horror movie, what is happening? The self-protection module is getting activated because of that fear. Now, very interesting. Even in the forest, in the jungle, you will find a very interesting thing. When the predator attacks the herd, suppose a herd of deers, the predator attacks. you will find a very interesting thing. All the entire herd always want to stay together because they know if any way they get singularized, they get out of the group, immediately the predator, the entire focus of the predator will be on it. So it always wants to be in the herd. It never wants to get separated, singularized. So when we are in the self-protection module, we always want to be in the herd. We never want to be singularized. But when we are with our family, that time we want to be alone. We don't want to be with the herd. So you will find those who went for the family adventure movie, they came out, they thought they have decided to go to the remote place. Actually, for them, after seeing the movie, the family module got activated. And the response is, choose some place where you have your own privacy. And those who went for the horror movie, they went for that herd protection. They went for that hub. Lord, we will stay in the center of the city where many people are there. But both of them thought it is they who have decided. It is their option. So now you will understand a very interesting thing. Is it we who are deciding? Are we the karta? It is these mental modules which are getting activated as per the situation. The entire world, the entire your science of advertisement is actually nothing but how to influence a particular module to get activated, and your decision is actually based on that module which has been activated. You think I have decided. Seeing the advertisement was planned in such a way. You find all the advertisements are planned in such a way that it is devised to activate a particular module so that you take the decision to buy it. The entire world of advertisement is that. You find the products for which the things which are they are advertising for a particular product, and most probably a very well-renowned film star, the hero, he comes and advertises for it. The product has nothing to do with that, but that's seeing that a particular module get activated and your decision is being manipulated, but you think you have decided. That's what is going on continuously. The nature is constantly fooling us. It is activating a particular module to sustain itself, giving me the idea that I am the one who is taking the decision. So now, very interesting. Now we will come to the idea. Now we have already understood one thing, that I am neither the karta nor the bhokta. So this idea of individuality is a big question now, question mark. Is it true? So constantly this viparya is happening, life after life. This sense of individuality, which itself is false, which is not there, I am taking it to be true. So that is, as we have already studied, it is a tat rupa pratishtham. And this is the result of all the viparya, all the miseries which we are going through, life after life. So now the question is the very very interesting that we told that each of those vrittis, now very interesting, that each of these vrittis, some of them are afflictive, some are non-afflictive. So now we need not have to explain that the vrittis are afflictive, because why they are afflictive? All the afflictions are happening because of this wrong sense of our individuality. So they are all afflictive. Then how can viparya be non-afflictive? Now that is very interesting. Now that speaks of spiritual practice. With that we will come to the conclusion of our discussion. You will find that each and every sutra starts with a very with an idea which is in our experience level, but it takes us to the spiritual dimension by indicating, by just pointing out something very interesting. So now, very interesting, we all find that when we are relaxed, you're just sitting relaxed, you have as such no immediate responsibilities, or when we are trying to meditate, that's the time you will find that your mind is extremely cluttered with thoughts. in relaxed state, when our mind is in default mode, or when we are trying to meditate, the reason for cluttering of thoughts we generally experience is the fight between various mental modules to get prominence. So what's the idea? Now, when I am in the office, as per the situation, a particular module gets activated. There is no clash. It decides, it makes me behave in a particular way. When I am with my children, with my family, a particular module gets activated, I behave in a particular way. Problem happens when, as such, I have no responsibility. I am a bit relaxed or I am trying to meditate. Then what happens? All the various modules which has been pampered as per the situation at particular time, which has been nourished by my ego, they all have been pampered at some time or other. They all have been nourished. They all have been strengthened by me at particular time or other. Now, when I'm in the default mode, there is no need for any of this particular module to get activated. Then a wonderful thing happens. Now they all behave like this. All these modules now start behaving like the pampered grandchildren. The nanny is sitting. She wants to relax, and all the grandchildren in the holiday has came. They're sitting around the nanny, and now they all want to be pampered. They all are trying to grab the attention of the nanny. None of them will allow the nanny, the grandma, to relax. All are trying to grab the attention. That's what happens with all the modules when we are in the default mode, but when there is no need for any particular module to get activated. When we are in which relaxed, or when we are trying to meditate by trying to get rid of all the modules, now all try to crowd the mind. That's why we find it so difficult. The cluttering of the thoughts happen. We find so queer because all have been nourished. Our condition with our ego is like the one who has been nourishing the various modules. The modules are like the birds. I have the habit every day to give some grains to the birds in the morning. They every day come. Now, what's the way out? Now, I have to create another module, design another module first, which will act as a scarecrow for all other modules. So that particular module, that is also a module which I'm creating. My sadhana is also a part of the ignorance, because I'm creating a module which I am, when I do in the meditation, I say I am not the mind. Who is saying? The mind is saying. I say I am not the body-mind complex. But who is saying? The mind is saying. So I have created a module, I have designed a module which is actually aklishta. Though it is also ignorance, but it is aklishta. How? This is a very interesting thing. When the birds come, I give them the grains every day. Now, if I think I won't feed them anymore, they won't stop coming, because they have been habituated for such a long time. I have pampered them for such a long time. Even the next day when I plan not to give, they will come. So now for me just to sit and just to keep watch over the birds is very difficult. So you will find in the village what they do, they keep a scarecrow to just get rid of the birds. The birds will be scared by that scarecrow. So here we create a module. This is also in the part of ajnana, ignorance. That is also a module, but that is the constant contemplation of the idea that I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses. How it helps. Now all the mental modules, innumerable, they're all hinged to asmita. That is the basic thing. First, that sense of limited I comes. With that, all the modules are hinged, which originates from ignorance. That I have taken this body-mind complex to be me, that ignorance, from that all the modules are hinged. Thus, they are linked with the idea, all are linked with the idea, I am the body-mind complex. That's the first idea which comes, that I am this, and then the liking comes. Suppose I see a cheesecake and I feel like having it. What's the idea? It is I, this body-mind complex, who likes it. So all the mental modules are linked with that limited sense of I. Now, when you're practicing contemplation on the idea, I am not the body-mind complex, then what is happening? You are gradually designing a new nirmana chitta. That's what all the sadhakas does. That is the meditative nirmana chitta. That will act like a scarecrow. That we will find in the fourth chapter. They call there's a mention of dhyanaja nirmana chitta. The fourth, the sixth sutra in the fourth chapter. Dhyanaja nirmana chitta is non-afflicting. Tatra dhyanajam anashayam. This acts as a scarecrow. That all these mental modules which are linked to the idea that I am the body, it acts as a pratipaksha. It acts as a contending thought and scares them off. The more I practice, this itself is a wrong notion because the mind is saying I am not the mind. So you will find I am doing something which itself is viparyaya. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, this is like removing a thorn with a thorn. I am passing through the forest, a thorn tree. I have just stumbled over a thorn tree and a thorn has pierced me. Now, how to get rid of the thorn? From the same thorn plant, I pluck out another thorn. And with that, I just extract another thorn, and with that, I pluck out the thorn which has pierced me. After I plucked out, both the thorns are of no use. I throw both of them. So know it for certain, this our sadhana, that constantly contemplating that I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses, I'm the conscious principle, I'm the Purusha. This itself is also viparyaya, is a part of the mind, which is meditating. But this helps, this is like the second thorn with which you uproot all the thorn. And at last, there is a way to even get rid of this dhyanaja nirmana chitta, this meditative mental module, to take you to that ultimate emancipation. There is a way. But now we will understand that this, though I am having when I am saying that I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses, that itself is a part of ignorance. This is the thing you will find many will be questioning. Who says I am not the body? You are saying. Who says you are not the mind? The mind is saying, yes, it is true. But this viparyaya is aklishta, because at last this will take you beyond the body-mind complex. Though it is a part of ignorance, it is like the second thorn with which you pluck out the first thorn which has pierced you. That's the thing. They are all the first thorn which has pierced you. They are the klishta. They are afflictive. The second is the klishta. With this, you will get rid of all the afflictions. That's why it is a klishta. It is non-afflictive. So now you will understand how viparyaya can be afflictive as well as non-afflictive. We just, if you remember, that it was mentioned in the fifth sutra that each of the vrittis can be both afflictive as well as non-afflictive. So I think in the today's discussion, to a certain extent, we are now clear with the idea that how the sense of I is a big viparyaya. And that sense of I we can design in such a way with the help of meditation by linking it with the idea that I am not the mind. The mind itself is saying, with that, I am not this psychophysical existence. With that idea, I can go beyond all the kleshas, all the sufferings, all the afflictions. And that's why this, though it's a part of the viparaya, though it is a part of the wrong knowledge, it will lead to the real knowledge by removal of the ignorance. So that's why this meditation, all the meditations are aklishta, as has been described in the sixth sutra of the fourth chapter, that only the dhyanajam, the mental module, which is the product of meditation, dhyanajam. Dhyanajam means the product of meditation. That is anashayam. Anashayam means non-uplifting. Of all the tatra, of all the mental modules, only the one which is the product of meditation, that alone is non-afflictive. Though it is a part of the ignorance, but it will take you beyond the ignorance. So I think to a certain extent, we can just have clarified that how viparyaya can be both afflictive and non-afflictive, and how the idea of this limited individuality is the biggest viparyaya. So with this, we stop our discussion today. So if we can stop our discussion today. If any question is there, you can ask. We can just have 5-10 minutes for that. Otherwise, we will stop the class for today.
Namaskar, Swamiji. Good night.
Yeah. Good night. Good night.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Hari Om Swami.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Good night, Swami.
Yeah. So I'm just closing the class.
Namaskar.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.